Okay, so let's continue with the other version of the PPP. So as I told you earlier, we have this, the log one price, that's the major theory, and then we have two applications, first absolute PPP and then relative PPP. So let's go now and study relative PPP. So relative PPP is different basically because instead of considering only one good, like in the previous one with the Big Mac or any other good, instead of only one good, we are going to consider all the goods in the economy. And which variable do you think we can use to consider that, the prices of all goods in the economy? The answer is inflation, the inflation rate, right? The rates of inflation. So for this relative PPP, we have this formula. It's also interesting. It's also important if you write this in your notebook, in your notes, that this is the formula for the relative PPP. So as you can see, we have now time. That's very important. This is the first time that we are seeing time. So three things that you need to consider in here. First, that pi equals the inflation rate. This is inflation from the home country on top and foreign country at the bottom. Again, the same thing. Don't get obsessed with what's home, what's foreign. It's the only thing that matters is that if you have the inflation of Mexico on top and the inflation of the US at the bottom, the final answer will be Mexico over dollar, pesos over dollar. That's the only thing that matters, right? So that's the first thing that you need to consider. The other thing that you need to consider is that time in this case is in, I think in here we have time in days. No, sorry, in years. That's important. Yeah. In this formula, the letter T means the exponent in here. This letter T means years, right? So if we have, if the problem tells you that you want to forecast the exchange rate in 2 years, you should write number 2. If the problem says 6 months, you should write 0.5, right? 0.5. If it says 3 months, then 0.25. So T is in years. Be careful with that. And I think that's pretty much everything. The other thing that you need to be careful with is that you need to do whatever is in the parentheses first, then the exponent, and then finally the division, and then you multiply times the spot. That's something that you should remember. Another thing, this little thing that you see here, T, and this 0, this means that this is spot at time 0, and you are trying to forecast the spot at time wherever. That's why it says P. It really matters. It really depends on years. If I am asking you to calculate the time in 2 years, this will be spot 2, spot in 2 years. So here I have a problem, an exercise that maybe we can do in Excel. I have my Excel file open that we can work with. And I will copy the formula. I will write it in here so we can do it together. So here I have my problem. The problem says, let me check if you are watching my Excel. So the problem says that if Mexico and the US are running annual inflation rates of 4 and 3, respectively, and the spot rate in Mexico is 16.96 pesos per dollar, then according to the relative version of PPP, the PPP rate in 3 years should be. So let's start with the data. What data do we have? First, we have the inflation rates of Mexico and the inflation rate of the US. That's what we have so far. And in Mexico, the inflation rate is 4% and in the US is 3%. The next thing that we have is a spot at time 0. Spot at time 0 is 16.96 pesos per dollar. And finally, finally, we have time. Time is 3 years. So it will be 3 years. So what we are going to do is to use this formula to solve this. Is actually, I think, very easy. So the first thing that I need to do is to do what's inside of the number. You can do a whole formula like all together, or you can go step by step. Let's go step by step to make it easy. It will be 1 plus the inflation rate of the home country, in this case, Mexico, then the exponent and the number of the exponent. You always miss getting this thing. The number of the exponent is the number of years that you have, right? So by doing this operation, I am solving the top part, right? Then I will do the same for the bottom part. So it will be 1 plus the inflation in the foreign country, in the US, and this will be over, sorry, over with exponent 3. I forgot the exponent 3 years. I don't know why I got it in percentage. So I solved the thing for the bottom. So I have bottom and top. What I need to do now is to do the division, this over this, right? So I got this number, and then finally I will multiply this times the spot, right? And remember, I asked you to do every calculation with 4 digits. So let's add 4 digits, and the answer, of course, is in pesos over dollar. So the answer is 17.45 pesos over dollar. This will be the relative PPP, the forecast exchange rate using inflation. And it makes sense, right? I think it validates the theory that if we have higher inflation in our country, in Mexico, in 3 years, the exchange rate will be more expensive for us because everyone will prefer foreign goods and demand will increase for them. So this is kind of an application of what we have just learned. Let me go back to the presentation. Let me see if I have something to add. Finally, these are just major conclusions. So remember, in the law of one price, the law of one price is the name of the whole theory, but we have 2 applications, relative PPP and absolute PPP. Absolute is the first one, actually. In both cases are, or both applications are not fully accurate, and that's normal. But if you ask me, so why am I learning something that is not fully accurate? It's because in the next class, where we are going to learn what's actually being used in real life, it will make much more sense. I think if I jump this, it will be more difficult for you to understand. And there are 2 important things that you need to notice. First is that PPP, I think especially the relative PPP, holds well in very long term, and also if the differences in inflation are quite large. Sorry. So this theory actually works out well in the long term, and if the inflation differences are quite large. So I think those are kind of the conclusions from this. And finally, just to finish with this class, with today's class, I'm going to explain in another video this important concept. What is the pass-through? So for that, I will make a new video.